and welcome to John's Box and to the second part of the series Through Learning to Service, where I look through a booklet entitled The Same, written by former head Philip A. Coggin, who incidentally lived a long life after retiring. This is information from a former classmate and friend which I received, which states that he passed away in 2010, aged 93, having continued writing well into his retirement. If you don't know who I am, I'm John Horvath. I attended Park Senior High School between 1980 and 1983. There you are, with my top button undone, looking rather slovenly here. Before I delve into the book or booklet, I'd like to show you one of my school exercise books. This time it's my English book. My first English teacher at Park was a Mr. David Churchill, who himself wrote a few books, including one called The Silbury Triangle, which I actually reviewed in this very exercise book. There you are. I'd read his book. I borrowed it from the school library, and the Silbury Triangle is reviewed here, which he seemed to like. And I'll show you something else which is interesting. I hope I'm not boring you, but there was a piece of work I wrote where I actually changed into being Mr. Churchill himself for a day, and it all ended happily when at the end of the story I changed back into Mr. Churchill, and I'd wondered whether he'd been me for a day. Okay, this video isn't about me, it's about the book. By the way, it turns out that some other former pupils who commented on the Face group mentioned that they indeed had a copy of this book too, both from those who attended the grammar school and also the comprehensive school. I've decided to dedicate part 2 to the establishment of the house system at the school, and from the information available, it was Miss Knight who suggested it, and pupils and staff were divided into 4 groups in order to come up with the names of the houses. They were to be people of prominence who had given a lot of their time up to communities and indeed the nation themselves. Now, if you don't remember the house names, I did mention it in the first part of part 1 of the video, which I published a week or 2 ago. So the 4 names that emerged from that: Group Captain Leonard Cheshire, VC, Victoria Cross; Baron Fraser of Lonsdale; Lady Edwina Mountbatten; and Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who was actually German. And permission was actually needed for their names to be used from the prominent people themselves. So each house head had to write to their chosen patron, and from time to time Mr. Coggin intervened as well. And page 7 to 20 of this book actually deals with the correspondence, or rather the pages deal with the correspondence. So let me read you some fragments of that. Okay, so we'll start off with Cheshire House. A lot of correspondence in 1960, in fact, was exchanged to and from. Miss I.C. Knight, the first head of Cheshire House, wrote about its beginnings, and a group Captain Cheshire's letter of agreement came quickly I'm quoting now what Mr. Coggin wrote here, and is now our most prized possession, a charter of our foundation. And it goes on to say, Leonard Cheshire does reply in a letter which he signed from the 4th of November 1960 from the Cheshire Foundation Homes for the Sick, and I quote just a part from that. I would be very pleased to come and talk to you about the homes one day. That is Leonard Cheshire. Although I doubt if I shall be at the Great House again until next year, or rather Great House. It is very good of you all to take an interest in that home, and I know they will be very grateful for any help you are able to give them. And it goes on to say, hoping to meet you one day, and signed Leonard Cheshire. On to Fraser House. Dr. Elsie Woodall was the head of the mathematics department and responsible for launching Fraser House. And again, she wrote to Fraser, or rather Baron Fraser of Lonsdale. So Miss Baron Fraser, who was the chairman of the Fraser Foundation, responds to Mrs. Woodall. I very much appreciate your wish to help the blind in some really useful way. St. Dunstan's looks after men and women blinded on war service. We decided over a year ago to discontinue our appeals to schools, although we still appeal for donations each year to individual friends who have helped us for some time. Yep. And there's again exchange of correspondence, including also with Mr. Coggin, and Dr. Fraser here writes, in the future I should happen to find that I must travel in your direction, he'll let you know, etc, etc, and pop in to the school. So that's Fraser House. Okay, so moving on to Mountbatten House, and by the way, I'm recording this one day later, so there's some slight changes here to my appearance. Now, Mountbatten House was named after Countess Mountbatten of Burma, and she actually died in February 1960. So this particular patron was actually dead when the school did open. She did die on active service, and at the time the head of the house was Mr. Chambers, and correspondence was actually exchanged between Mr. B.W. Chambers, Senior Master and Head of History, and the family of the late Countess. So there were a number of letters exchanged between Mr. Chambers and the Mountbatten's family, or Countess Mountbatten's family. So the Mountbatten of Burma was actually Louis Mountbatten, 1st Earl Mountbatten of Burma, who was assassinated as a result of a bomb blast at Mulligan Moor in Ireland in August 1979. Now, he writes a letter of thanks to Mr. Chambers, sending back the letter through the Ministry of Defence. And also he encloses a photograph. We don't actually see the particular photograph that he's referring to, and it was taken in the last week of Lady Mountbatten's life, when she was cheering up sick child of one of the Gurkha soldiers in a hospital in Singapore, and he goes on to say that this was very typical of her whole life's work. Apparently some charity work was undertaken, and this was there was a letter also received from the Save the Children Fund. So a charity event had been organised by the school, by pupils at Park, and it goes on to read to Mr. Coggin, in fact. I know how much Mr. Morrell enjoyed his visit to Park School last Wednesday to present the prizes at your annual speech day, would you believe, and how impressed he was by the work of the school and the concern of your pupils and staff for the needs of others, etc. And then it goes on to say, I was particularly pleased to learn of the tremendous achievement of the trampolining team, which established a world record of 250 hours of non-stop trampolining and raised £100 for the Save the Children Fund. So that's quite a lot of money in those days. And he goes on to conclude more or less that the funds are greater than ever before, the demands are greater than ever before, that the fund faces great problems and difficulties, and he thanks the support of Park School and its close connections with Mountbatten House. And that's from C.K. Hibben, who was Deputy Director General of Save the Children Fund. So that's Mountbatten House. And the last of the houses is the one that I was in, and that is Schweitzer House, named after Albert Schweitzer, who lived to be 90 years old. He died in 1965. Mark Wicks founded Schweitzer House, and he was the head of science, and he died actually in 1964 before Albert Schweitzer actually died. And again, he was the one who initially wrote correspondence, and the Schweitzer House was chosen, as I mentioned. There was worry that it may be difficult to contact Dr. Schweitzer, to make contact with him, since he worked mostly in West Africa. In fact, he did receive a Nobel Peace Prize for the hospital that he established in Gabon, and he is actually extremely titled. After the death of Mark Wicks, Mr. Buckland, who was the PE teacher, wrote a correspondence to him. However, also correspondence was written to him in French, and actually Dr. Albert Schweitzer replied by a facsimile of a letter in 1960. I'll just show it to you. I can't make heads or tail of it, but that's the letter that Dr. Schweitzer wrote back. It's just a brief summary of that letter, which I've just shown you in English. It goes on to say, I thank you for the honour that you do me and for the interest you show in me and my ideas. So please do as you suggest, to name the house after him. As a motto, I propose that you should take the Beatitude from our Lord's Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. That's from St. Matthew's Gospel, by the way. And Dr. Schweitzer was indeed a religious man, being the son of a pastor. And he also sends a few photographs for the classroom So that's the children that he was helping there. Well, let me just describe what those photos were. They were all annotated in Dr. Schweitzer's own hand. There was an etched portrait of the doctor writing at his desk, bearing the words, "To the Park Grammar School, Woolcock, avec mes bons pensées, Albert Schweitzer." So that's the French. Another photograph was entitled "The Court of the Hospital," and the third came later in 1961, also annotated in English by the doctor, which bore the words, "The 3 islands near the village of Iningia, 80 kilometers downstream from Lambaréné on the Ogovo River," that's probably in Gabon. It was here on a September's Day in 1915 that the idea that reverence for life is the basic principle of ethics and humanity came to me, etc, etc, etc. There's a lot more information about Dr. Albert Schweitzer, which is available online if you want to check it out. So anyway, thank you for staying with me until the end. It's been quite a long video. I hope you found it interesting. I'll be back soon with another delve into the past on the goings on at Park Grammar and Park Senior High School, whichever you belong to. So once again, thank you, and see you next time. Bye for now. Bye.